best guests in all of true crime. Don't forget to subscribe and smash that like button. Here's your host, Emmy Award-winning broadcaster, Joel Waldman.
What's up, STS Nation? Welcome to Surviving the Survivor. It is the podcast that brings you the very best guests in all of true crime on big trending cases. And one of them right now is this missing University of Pittsburgh student. Now, she has not been seen in 11 days, arriving to Punta Cana in the Dominican Republic somewhere around March 2nd or 3rd, and she goes missing on March 6th. Her name is Sudiksha Konanki, 20-year-old student, again, at the University of Pittsburgh. Last seen with someone from Iowa who is a St. Cloud University, Minnesota student, originally said to be 24, but now I've seen his age as 22. And we are going to break this all down with our best guests and best investigators. First up, you got Tom Smith. He is retired NYPD. He also was part of the counter-terrorism task force that worked hand in hand with guys like Rob D'Amico at the FBI. And as you can see there, he is co-host of the Gold Shields podcast, and like the other two, an all-around great guy. Next up, Rob D'Amico. He's a real-life superhero, this guy. First in the military and then in the FBI, and, catching snipers by being a sniper, hanging out at helicopters, things that we all do on a daily basis. That is Rob D'Amico. Of course, he gets all that grit from New Jersey, the greatest state in the union, which is where I'm from, and he is now in Florida. And last but not least, you've got the professor, John Jay, criminal justice professor, and also a retired NYPD detective, David Sarney, who's got definitely has a better voice than myself, D'Amico, or Tom Smith. The guy's got the best voice going in the business. So here we are. Rob D'Amico, I'm going to defer to you first on this one. We had you on before, and by the way, I took a red eye from Tucson, Arizona last night, so I'm slightly delirious, and if I call people, including myself, by the wrong name, please forgive me. But Rob, March 6th, it is now 11 days. Happy St. Paddy's Day, by the way, to everybody out there. 11 days later, and this young woman who is from the Virginia, D.C. area, but going to the University of Pittsburgh, still nowhere to be found. This guy, Joshua Reeby, still being detained. What do you do now?
Yeah, I was thinking about that. Like, he's being detained. He's not, quote, a suspect. They don't have, person of interest down there. I would start looking to get him out of there. But he does have lawyers, but they've taken his passport. So, in all fact, he's basically being held. You still got to keep searching. We'll go over the questions that he answered, the ones he didn't. I'm not sure how much more over and over, even though you want to keep doing it. Like, he's going to now remember his story to what he's saying. He has lawyers telling him what not to answer, and we'll talk about. I don't understand some of the questions that he was told not to really answer, but it's just sad because I don't know, with the ocean the way it is, if they're ever going to recover her remains, because I think that's where she ended up, either foul play or not foul play. I'm not really going with the a third version of trafficking or something like that. I think it was a horrible thing, drinking and swimming in a rough ocean. Did he do it, or did she, drown on her own, so to speak? I think the results would be the same as far as recovering the body, though.
Yeah, and if you weren't here for last week's show, Rob has a great name for the ocean, the Big Hungry, and it eats what it wants, takes what it wants, when it wants. Tom Smith, there was a question up there. Where's that? Where'd that question go? CEO, you can't do that to me today because I can't. I have no brain power. But There was a question up there, I think, about some of the parents' requests, and this is Sudiksha's parents' request. They kind of want to widen the investigation. It's been 11 days. When you're investigating something of this nature, I mean, obviously the parents are going to be trying to get at you, rightfully so, as much as possible. But to conduct your investigation, do you have to sort of like keep them at an arm's length just so you can get the work that you need to get done?
Oh yeah, you're confined in what your thought is, and you don't want any outside influences, to come into it. But everything that they're thinking, believe me, the investigators are thinking of. No one's out thinking, the people who do this for a living and thinking outside the box of what could have happened with this. And they're going to address it, as it comes up. And Rob's right. There's only so many avenues you can go, without getting really crazy. I don't believe, as Rob said, the trafficking thing, I think it was part of the ocean, whether it was intentional or an accident or what. But I think the trafficking thing would have came out a lot quicker and with a lot more intel with that, if that was the case.
Mm. David, to you, I like the Yankees hat, by the way, Tom Smith. But David, I mean, right now they're still really sort of describing at least Dominican authorities, and there's some conflict between the Dominican authorities and the American authorities. And we know the FBI is helping in the investigation, but right now they're really kind of just calling it a missing persons case. I mean, could this flip over to a criminal case at some point, or are we kind of like, past that period of time? In other words, would the either Dominican and or American investigators found some sort of deception, I guess, with this guy Joshua Reeby by now, or is it still plausible that a day from now or 3 days from now they say, you know what, this is no longer a missing persons case, this is now a criminal case? And what would that take?
You got to realize a couple of things. Missings are missing until you deem it criminal. That's the one thing we all know about. And you're in a quandary. You don't have much. You don't. Where's you want to find out he's with this kid, and this kid does not look like a mastermind who's going to run around and decide to dump a body. That's one thing. Did something happen at the beach that shows? I mean, they found clothing apparently belonging to her nearby. He's kept every story. Now, as we've been saying, and the story's not going to change. And what else can you do? How much more searching have you done here? They've gotten the video surveillance. They see that she's probably intox. That's an issue, obviously. She's near the water, something that for some reason, the idea to go into the water is not a great idea. He apparently stated that he saved her in a sense where they were drowning. Did she go back in again? Or is he saying, or to speculate, did she drown? And he just said that because he feels like he's guilty. Who knows? It's going to take time. But I look at the worst part of this. This is the same thing that happens. And unfortunately, you've seen these kids do how you leave your wingman and how the wingman, her friends, leave her to her own devices. We've seen this time and time again. That's my concern. You go to a facility, you go to this resort, and resorts are supposedly insular. But the initial problem is they went there. She probably overdrank, given the fact she's throwing up. He's apparently throwing up. Yeah. And they leave her to her own devices. So how far they have that? They've had video surveillance. Now she's at the water. Is there video to determine that? We found clothing there. Yes. But, you have the kid detained. How much more is he going to say? And when the remains come back, what are you going to find, if anything, from that remains? I mean, this is the Dominican Republic. The waters are rough out there. Apparently, this is something you're going to see. And it'll turn criminal when they find something criminal. But reality, right as it stands now, there's not much more than a missing person. And you have a kid who only says so much.
And David, to you, I'm glad you brought it up. And it's going to be a lot more powerful coming from you than from me. But it is spring break right now, I believe. I mean, there's a lot of – I was just the University of Arizona for this big book festival, and the campus was empty because a lot of kids are away. I don't think too many college kids are going to be watching this podcast because they got a lot better things to do, but their parents might be because we have nothing to do as parents. So, David, what would you say to parents of college age kids who are going to go to Punta Cana or Aruba or Puerto Rico or wherever, Daytona Beach, wherever else? I mean, what do you say to those parents? What do these college age kids have to do?
I teach college, and we go back and forth to Florida. My wife's in Fort Lauderdale now, and she's like, spring break is exploding.
Yeah.
And you try to tell the parents, vet the places they're going, vet their friends, who are their friends, where are they going, how many days are going to be there, everything, phone numbers of all the friends that are going, getting emails, anything you can get from the people that she's going with. Because for some reason, and I don't understand why, and I have not seen this, and we've seen these cases before. I met Sanguian case in Manhattan. Her friends left her at the bar, and then she ends up dead. The same thing here. Why would you leave your friend to someone else's care if you're all going together? And parents need to really be aware of who they're going with. Is this the first time she's going away? Here's another phone, a cell phone, whatever you need to do to protect your kid from this bad decision of letting her go off with her on her own with someone else that she never.
Did she tell her friends like, hey, she's hooking up? Like, I'm good. Like, I mean, that's one of those things that you can say that like, hey, the buddy system. And I trust me, I believe in it. But if she said, hey, I want to hook up with this guy, leave me alone. She's good with it. Then her friends did what she asked. I mean, it's one of those.
Yeah, it more than likely is. But, you're in a place that you're just like, oh, and I believe in this full-heartedly. You can't leave your wingman. That's the one thing. You can all meet again up together. I've gone away on vacation. I've met people out there. I've put myself in a situation, you can put the situation similar to this, but in the kids are naive. I really are naive in this. Like, I'm good. Who is he? Doesn't anyone ask, who is this kid that you're hanging out with? You met him for 15 minutes or whatever time for a couple hours. Is this kid Josh?
I look back on my time at like making decisions at 18, and Jesus, it's amazing I'm here. I look back on it, and maturity is one of those words of wisdom. And unfortunately, as you know, if a parent tells a kid something, it like kind of in one ear out the other. Sometimes when you have other adults or maybe a cousin that's a little bit older, they listen to it a bit differently. But I mean, it's so hard to go back and say, hey, at 19, I was making good decisions. Jesus, I was making horrible decisions. Thank God there are no cell phone cameras. And this one, if it was an accident, her friends are never going to forgive themselves. The guy is probably not. I do, the one thing that you mentioned was in his statement, he says he saved her. Like she started getting, going under, and he was a lifeguard in a pool, not the ocean though. But he did bring her back. Would she go back in if she just got saved? Like, that's one of those questions that I just kind of started thinking about. Like, well, geez, you just got pulled out of the ocean. So maybe in fact, it happened, and he's finally remembering he brought her to shore, and last he saw her knee deep in water because he wants to think he did that. And again, he's blackout drunk if he did pass out. So
it's kind of that conquering hero thing. You want to, lay aspersions like I did something right instead of I did something stupid, like going into the water in tops, drunk out of my mind, into a water at night where you can't see anything.
And like we said on the last show, he may have convinced himself that's what he did because he doesn't even remember too much. He wants to be the hero. And then, and then in his mind, he's got this picture of what he heroically did.
And you keep revolving this, keep telling the story over and over again. So now it's not a lie once you believe it. And he believes it at this point.
George Costanza.
So no one else. I take the Costanza line. My life is that way. And that's what he did. It looks like he convinced himself that he saved her. But he puts her in the water with him. So is there a chance that during that moment, she didn't come back, he doesn't remember, and he's trying to make a story, and now the story is solid. Now he has a solid picture on that story. And that's the thing. Her clothes were at the water near the beach. So you're thinking, is that the same area? But when it comes to, and parenting, my son's 22. He's going to be moving to Japan in the summer to teach. And I'm concerned, But you have to let them go. But you also, when you're dealing with friends, and that's, they make bad decisions. Women don't usually, and groups of girls don't usually let their friends go off with people they don't know, and especially unless they're all hooking up. And I see that with kids all the time. If it's one of them, and I was at bars with 20, 21 years old, they would not let that girl leave the bar with them. And that's, even though they hooked up, it was just that type of tightness. These kids are a lot more naive than that, and they think, oh, it's okay. She said it's okay. But back in our day, and I did very stupid things. So we were lying, you're not going to let that happen. And
yeah, you always had a plan to separate the friends that were, not hooking up, with the ones that you wanted to. I mean,
you had to try to find you find someone gets caught doing the bad thing. You're like, you catch the bad deal. You catch the bad fish, and you have to deal with that part of it. But
by the way, I love this episode so far. I feel like the four of us are in a diner and everyone's eavesdropping, and Rob and Sarney are talking, and Tom and I are just on our phones ignoring everybody. But let me read. So this is Joshua Rebe, who again, he was listed as being 24 years of age early in the story. Now he's being described as 22 years of age. He was a collegiate wrestler, still is, I imagine. So he's obviously athletic, and he comes from Iowa, which is the the epicenter of wrestling, although someone argued with me that it was Pennsylvania the other day. But here he says, Tom Smith, direct quote from Joshua Rebe, the person who was with her that night. I was trying to make sure that she could breathe the entire time. That prevented me from breathing the entire time, and I took in a lot of water. When I finally touched the sand, I put her in front of me. Then she got up to go get her stuff since the ocean had moved us. She was not out of the water since it was up to her knee. She was walking at an angle in the water. The last time I saw her, I asked if she was okay. I didn't hear her response because I began to vomit with all the water I had swallowed. After vomiting, I looked around and I didn't see anyone. I thought she had taken her things and left. So, but there's a few different versions of this, Tom. I mean, I don't know. For me, and I'm not an investigator like you guys, I read this and it sounds, fairly plausible. Sounds like, like it could have happened. How do you read this?
Yeah, I mean, he's saying three different things in one paragraph. But he's again justifying having her in front of him. He was breathing, she was breathing. She got, out of the ocean. It was up to her ankle. She went to get her stuff. She was walking sideways. I mean, those are all, pretty on target things if you're thinking of a scene. So where'd it go wrong? To pinpoint, okay, you just laid out three different areas where you're saying she was. Where'd she end up? Where was the last place you saw her out of getting her clothes or walking knee deep in water or walking sideways? What was the end, thought or last version of seeing her? I think we're all into the same mindset of he's trying to justify what he did and trying to make more of what he did than, may have actually happened. Does he have a recollection clearly of it? No. Could he just be pulling this out of air, what he thinks happened? Sure. And that's where you run into a problem with questioning him, because I think we all agreed it is going to be what it is. And the more questions that are going to come up is lawyers are going to jump in and they're going to prevent him from answering them. The one thing going back to the other conversation, you have designated drivers. I would love to see like a designated person step up and say, all right, I'm just going to watch F1 tonight, and kind of have that overview of where all your friends are. Someone gets picked out for the night, you just do it while you're driving. So why not do it at a club? Is that unrealistic? It might be, we're just talking about ideas. And that came to mind. If someone is just, kind of a checklist texting, all right, where are you? Where are you? Where are you? Let's meet up here later on tonight. Make sure everyone's all right. I'd love to see that happen.
It was nice not to get yelled at for a day or so, but dumbest statement ever, Joel, and BS. Oh, dumbest statement from him, but and BS story ever. Really, Joel? LOL. This is possible. LOL. He's the hero? Question mark. She just walked away after that. All that detail. LOL. I mean, I I see where you're coming from as well. Let's put it that way. Dominican Republic Beach, where a Pitt student disappeared, has already claimed 3 tourist lives this year, and only one body was recovered. D'Amico, there was an interesting comment from SD's Crime Maze. Nowhere in his statements, and I don't think we've heard all the statements, but let me ask you this. If you're interviewing or interrogating, whichever word you prefer, but if you're interviewing this guy for the FBI, and never once does this guy say he's sorry or feels badly or hopes she's found, does that change the way you look at him? Like, if there's no remorse or empathy, do you take a different sort of look?
I think initially you might. One, I don't know if every statement that he said was written down, so I don't
Right.
know if he said that or not, or if he said it in the beginning. You just don't know what you're actually getting as far as transcripts. I think a little bit. Sometimes you have to look at that, but then again, I've seen people react so differently to horrific events. Like when they're, if we've done a bunch of missing, kids type stories, and some parents are really calm, and some parents are hysterical, and some and when people start putting a label to it, I think you start getting into problems there, because I've just seen everyone do different things when trauma or something horrible happens. So as an investigator, you really got to keep that mind open. You may note it, like, hey, he never once said he's sorry. But did he have an opportunity? Did he, like, is he's scared for himself now? So there's a whole bunch of different things that go into it. I think you'd note it. And then a good investigator will note it, maybe try to go down that road. But if you start saying like, oh, he's guilty because of it, then I think you're not letting the evidence kind of lead you to where the facts are, which is really, I mean, and that's what a mature investigator, you get a brand new detective or agent, they go with something like that quick. A mature one who's done a bunch of these, he's seen it all. He kind of like, okay, I'll note it, but it's not going to lead me on this, I think this happened.
Some nobody says, from a drunk college kid, edge of a rough ocean, I find his statement credible. He was throwing up and doesn't remember the other person said that was an absurd statement. I tend to agree a little bit more with some nobody. Patriotic. David, to you on this. This is just a much bigger question, and we'll get back. And there is new information. There's new video. We're going to show that in a moment. It's such a scary time to raise children. CO, speaking of my wife. I feel like we hear that in every generation. So my question to you, is it more difficult right now than, let's say, when you were and I were growing up in, the 70s, 80s, 90s, whatever it was? But I used to, in suburban New Jersey, we never locked our side door, and I walked to school every day. I walked alone. I walked home alone. I can't see, it's weird. Like, I think parenting has become more helicopter-ish. I mean, even my kids are out in front, like shooting baskets, like, got to keep an eye on them. My dad never kept, he just let me out. We were free range kids. Is it a different time now?
I think the kids are more naive now. I think social media and the isolation that these kids have developed over the years. I watch, I do a whole bunch of security gigs, and I watch kids, and I watch how interactions are. And you can see everybody as soon as a kid starts crying, they throw a phone in front of him or her, and the kid just watches it. And you can see the insular thing. You could see the naivete with these kids now. We grew up in a different world where we weren't worried about what people thought of us and how many likes we have. And I don't date you unless Instagram says you have these many friends. There's a lot more of that going on with kids. I see it with my students. I've been teaching college for 9 years. I taught high school prior. And when I taught high school, the kids then, 20, 30 years ago, were much more mature than the ones now. They're good kids, but they aren't really that understanding of situations. They don't have between COVID being locked away for a couple of years, the inability to socialize because of that has really pushed them back. So when you think at the number of 20, 22 years old that's an older kid. They're not really socially mature. And that's the thing. I dealt with, I used to go to bars at 18, 19 years old when I wasn't supposed to. And I've never not seen a friend not watch their other friend. Here it's sort of like, well, they said it's okay, so I'll just check on Insta and see if they're going to be there. Now you can create a group chat just for the event you're going to. These kids, she's a pre-med student. Our friends are college students. They're college ready, but socially high school and even almost like middle school. They've lost so many years in the process. And, I drank a lot when I was in college. These are not the same kids. I was boozing up for a long time and different. These kids are not the same. They're not. I wish you could say that, but I teach them. I see the differences in maturity level for students. They're 18, 19.
We were running into New York City at like 15, 16 years old.
Yeah.
I remember my dad had
fake IDs in Times Square.
Paper driver's license. I came in, I was 42. Something like, was it McSorley's?
Yeah.
And again, you're in New York back in the 70s and 80s. Like you want to, Times Square was a lot different back then. And you're in there at 16 years old. You start and again, also depends where you grow up too. It's probably not like that in some of the, Midwest and small towns and stuff. But I think overall in general, like Dave said, it is a maturity thing where back then you were free range kids. You're thrown out of the house and you're like,
right.
you came back, like, don't come back before dark was like half the time, I don't want to see you in the house. You're like, okay. And they had no idea where you were. And in Jersey, we were mostly making trouble.
Yeah. By the way, shout out to IGG in AZ. The coolest part about this trip was so many people came up and said that they watched the podcast, including IGG in Arizona, for these best guests. And it was great to meet everybody. It was the second largest book festival in the country. Maybe the COE will put up some pics at the end. But we do have new video. I'm going to play it up there, and then we'll kind of go around the horn, starting with Tom Smith. But this is from the lobby of the resort, and this is pretty new video, and it shows Sudiksha and I believe Joshua Reeby as well. But let's take a look at this together. I have to get rid of this. Stand by. Let me get rid of that. Let me put this up. Here we go. So this is surveillance video. And is that Sudiksha on the bottom? That's her right there, I guess. But I mean, Tom, as we're watching this, I'm assuming that is her right there, kind of walking through the middle of the lobby there. But I'm just going to play it again. And there's also some video of she and the guy apparently vomiting outside. But Tom, like what's 101 when you're watching, investigator 101 when you're watching video? Because you go, that's not her on the bottom right. Which one is she? Do we know, COE? Or D'Amico, do you know? Because I know you were.
You can see her on the right there. She's the one.
Like on the N? That one, right?
No, I think it's the other one that had her head in a kind of trash bag, maybe. She leans over right now.
Right there. Oh, okay.
Yeah.
That's her.
Oh, okay. Is it me, or does everyone look like they're wearing the exact same thing with the same exact color hair and the exact same length? It's great.
I was surprised, like that's a nice hotel lobby. When we first started getting like reports that the hotel was a scam place and stuff like that, I'm like, well, that's a pretty nice looking lobby for. I know the power went out and stuff, but I thought that was a bit different from the picture I was getting.
Yeah, I mean I think these are a chain, the RIU, RIU, and I think they're, you know, like higher starred
Yeah.
hotels. But Tom, back to you. I mean, what do they teach you? What do you learn when you're looking at surveillance video? Because I personally don't see much, obviously, except that it appears she's going to be vomiting right there, and no one else appears to be reacting too much. But what are you looking for?
Well, what you want to do, you know, you can't just watch one video. Like, this is her throwing up. Okay, it's piecing other videos together and creating a scene or somewhat of a timeline. That's the most important thing. So you're going to either work forward or you're going to work backwards with, just say, this video. What's another angle? Where's the other videos? Where's the other cameras? Are they recorded? And that's how you're going to put together a timeline of actions of her friends, this person of interest, all together. And you're just going to keep going until you don't have any more video. I mean, you know, you can pull video today from anywhere. Everything's under surveillance. Everything's a video. So you're going to do your best to really create the largest frame by frame actions that you can do to really piece something together.
So I do think if you were looking at a trafficking plot, you'd be looking to see if anyone's really noticing her and following her, maybe same person in another video or something like that. So again, when no one else is paying attention, but if you thought something else along those lines, you'd be seeing, hey, is someone else paying attention to her that they're not like looking after? And then they shows up in another video, then you may have something there. So it's also what's not in the video.
Very good point. I mean, look, you see her leaning over. I mean, what's so sad is this is someone's college-age daughter. The parents are obviously devastated, and this might be the last few images we ever get of her. I mean, hopefully, somehow, miraculously, she turns up. But if she just went, someone said, if she just went to bed right there, it'd be a different story. But David, you too. I mean, I know you guys are all, you know, you investigate. And you all have your own style. So, I mean, if you're watching this video, is it the same thing Tom said, where you're looking for the next piece of video to see what kind of puzzle comes together?
Yeah, absolutely. Make sure the timestamps there are accurate to the time that they're supposed to be, because you want to make sure that you get that lineal kind of timeline in a sense. You have her here. How much video do you have that shows her leaving the lobby? And then which go after the lobby. And you could do that well when you have a lot of cameras. And you do have a lot of cameras in these resorts. But there'll also be places they don't, like the beach. And that's where it looks like something happened at the beach. Something happened there. And that's where we lose her. And we only have, and the issue is, and the reality is, the only person that sees her last is saying he saw her. Is the last time he saw her is, you know, really, he's the last person to see her. So that's why he's become such a person of interest, a suspect in a sense. Now you have to timeline him to see when he comes back with his video. So you know who he is, you know who she is. Now start working on him, a timeline on his whereabouts, you know, pre and post, pre the incident and post incident. If he's saying where he's supposed to be, is there video to confirm that? And that's why I think, you know, when you do with the media cases, they're not going to tell you everything. And Tom, you know, and Rob would say the same thing. We don't tell you everything. We're not going to, because we don't want our case tainted with speculation. We want the facts. And you're going to get little facts leaked out that have been confirmed. And now they're still working on that. I guarantee you they're working on the post event. When he said he left her, where did he go after that? And that's the next step you're going to look at as far as video.
Yeah. Speaking of that, here's another video that's fairly new. I'm going to pop this up. I think this might be where they're both vomiting. Let's take a look. So that appears to be him, Joshua, in that bluish, and he looks like he's kind of stumbling around, right?
And now he has a cell phone. He had a cell phone out, so he's texting something, or at least looking at a text or something.
Isn't he the one in the back leaning over vomiting, right, in the tank top?
Wait, hold on.
We're behind the guy clapping back there.
Oh.
And that's her.
So is that person a friend of his, an associate of his that's on the phone?
Is he in shorts there at the back right?
He's in shorts in the back right.
I'm going to go back.
And the
Okay, I
time
thought
is
he was.
5:05. So is this where he throws? Is the constance is 5:05 on that? I couldn't see the date on it.
And the red hair guy with the like short sleeve shirt was
Yeah.
he was the one that was holding the other girls, like they were walking. He was paired up with one girl, and then the tank top guy was paired up with her. And then the two other girls, when they went to the beach, were together as a like friend couple. And then
That's
the
our
red hair
follow-up.
kid, what's that?
I'm sorry, Rob. I didn't mean to cut you off. That
No,
was
no.
her throwing up with the white shirt on
Yeah.
against the pole.
What's interesting is like no one else is even like, I mean, it's spring break and it's like no one even bats an eye. Like it's literally, I mean, people, yeah, it's Tuesday, right? Like the bartender is sitting there. I mean, the guy's behind the bar. No one is even moving. I'm having trouble seeing her. Where is she?
You'll see it in
Hold
a
on,
minute.
she'll come in a second. But see that white column, she'll vomit next to that.
Right. That's her standing right there. And she's going to move towards
Right
the
there.
Oh, right.
She's now going to lean over and
Yeah,
throw it.
there she goes.
Now, I mean, Tom Smith, I got to ask you. I mean, two people both vomiting. Yeah, it could be alcohol. It could be food poisoning for all you know, but it could also be something potentially more sinister, like a drug that they were given. What do you do? How do you know? How do you figure that part of it out? I mean, there's no body, no tox tests. But is that a possibility that it was something by the way, shout out to Anna Lee here and Cammie Day, but Anna Lee here with a super sticker. Thank you. I mean, we're all assuming it's alcohol, right? But it could be any number of things, Tom.
Sure, it could be. I mean, that's all part of the theory. You know, that's all thinking outside the box and having kind of a list of what ifs. You know, that's certainly one of them. That's not going to be able to get proven. You can, assume and again, like I said, a checklist of just things that you checked out or asked about, or was anyone else? Those are part of interviews as well. Was anyone else that's sitting at that bar right there? Were they interviewed? Did they feel sick? There's a number of things that can be done, not just keying on the person of interest, but others who are in the area. Did they hear anything? Did they see anything? Was anyone lurking around? That goes into this whole investigation as well. There's a number of other interviews that hopefully have been conducted or will be with a number of people who had seen them both. And again, sitting at a bar to raise your point, Joel, was anyone else there? Did anyone else feel sick? So that's all part of this, the investigation as well.
Yeah. Rob D'Amico, to you, this is kind of like your orbit here. So the FBI's out there, and apparently the Dominican authorities and the American authorities are a little bit at like loggerheads, because the Dominicans are basically suggesting sort of emphatically and unequivocally that this was a drowning, where U.S. investigators are saying, look, there's no sign of drowning, nothing washed, we have no evidence of that, so it could be foul play. So, like, how long does this back and forth go? I would love to see D'Amico there arguing with a Dominican police officer, but how does that work, Rob? How does that play out, where you're sitting there and they've got one theory and you're saying, no, we don't have the evidence for that theory right now?
Well, their resort island, they kind of want this to go away to a point. I mean, they put a lot of effort in the beginning in the search and stuff like that, and they found nothing on land. They had a ton of resources and dogs and helicopters and drones and people looking. And I don't think he was in any condition. Again, taking out the third option of a trafficking type kidnapping thing, he was in no condition, I don't think, to move. Like, if he did something and to her and put her body on land to really get very far and hide it well. I mean, like, he was hammered. So I don't know how much more that, like, they're going to want to put into this. They kind of want to move on. It was a horrible accident in their thing. She drowned. There's 4 tourists that drowned in January. you know, and then they moved on and they want to kind of get out of the spotlight because it's going to harm their, you know, their business model. Like you look down at like what they were saying in New Orleans after the terrorist attack, they wanted to get back to people partying. Like that really clued you in on what they were looking for because they had the Super Bowl coming up. And this may be the same case with the FBI. We have no agenda. We want to throw, you know, we want to find it, and our resources are unlimited to a point. You know, that was always a difference sometimes with smaller police departments. When the FBI came in, we weren't paying anyone overtime. We had all the money in the world, and some of the smaller departments, they have, you know, they have drawbacks on doing some of that. So of course we're going to keep saying, hey, like keep looking and stuff. And they were like, hey, we're pretty convinced. I think that, you know, she drowned. It's horrible. It's an accident, but we kind of need to move past it, is what they're saying, I think.
Yeah. And David Sarney, to you, I mean, Lucy here is saying there's no way. And by the way, I love seeing the new names, get a lot of new names flowing in lately. And it's amazing. We've got a lot of mainstays as well. I'm looking at Robin Ray as one. Robin Ray, I met a cool actor dude I'm going to tell you about. No way it was drowning, says one person. And then another comment said, well, here's talking about surveillance cameras, but other comments said she wasn't dressed to swim. There's no way she was swimming. I mean, just because she wasn't, I mean, she could have stripped naked. You just don't know, right, David? I mean, how do you, I mean, you can't go by a comment like she wasn't dressed to swim because could have gone in her clothes. She could have taken her clothes off. Those clothes could be gone. I don't know. I mean, the other issue is the crime scene, or the scene, not crime scene, but the scene is a beach. Like, how hard is it to maintain like the integrity of a scene when it's the beach?
Well, that's the problem, and that's the issue I think people are having is, you know, where if we're going to say this is not a drowning or the body is not in the water, where is the body? You guarantee you they've done a search up and down that beach to try to locate where this person would have buried a body. And in the condition that it seems he is in, I don't think you have the wherewithal to do that. But regardless, when we talk about investigations, you have to go with an open mind. You can't say there's no way she drowned. We can't say there's no way she was killed. You have to let the evidence dictate what the end result is. The totality of circumstances here. Right now, you don't see anything that stems one way or the other. You know, you have the only person that's seen her last was him. And right now his story is solid. That's it. You're not changing that part. We've gone through that. So now you have to work on what other evidence, what other trace evidence. And on the beach, that trace evidence has already been pulled in and pulled out at sea a dozen or so times at this point. So that's what you have until you can find something else. And I think that's why the FBI is going, there's got to be something else. And sometimes there isn't. And, you know, this is where you have to work on what he said in his statements and look toward those statements and work on a timeline on those statements as best you can. You know, he doesn't have does he have a watch on? Does he have a cell phone? Doesn't he have a cell phone? What were they drinking at the bar? Is there a bar tab? Is it the way they kept how many drinks they were doing? The friends, how much were they drinking? Do they remember what they were drinking? So you could say if it was a drugging issue or was just severe intox where you're just drinking, you're doing shot, and this is what happens. So I can't say one way or the other until you find more. And right now, work on where he was after the event based on his statements.
Yeah, and Tom, just to follow up on that. So again, just going back to some of the kind of inconsistencies, which there were with this guy Reeby's account. He claims that while he and Konanki are swimming, that a strong wave pulls them out. He again says he manages to bring her back to shore. He last sees her walking away in knee-deep water. Later, he mentions that after rescuing her, he vomits and passes out on a beach chair, wakes up, she's gone. People are like, well, if she was struggling, how would you just let her go? I mean, at what point do you say both these people were just completely wasted, and it's almost like we can't even rely on his statement? When do you get to that point where you're like, all right, the statement is sort of irrelevant because we just don't know that he knows at this point.
Yeah, you just said it. We don't know. You have one account to this. That's it. That's all anyone can go on. And that's the problem with this. You don't have two. There's no contradicting. There's no, well, someone else saw this. So how do you account for your statement? That's the problem with this. There's none of that. You have one thing to go on. And that's why this investigation is so difficult. And you start really narrowing it down to an accident or whatever, because there's nowhere to go. The statements are what they are. You can't make it up. You can't pull someone out and just say, hey, what did you see, if no one else was around? So that's why this is difficult of an investigation. And when it comes to, gearing the facts or any evidence that we might get out of this.
Rob D'Amico from Lauren here. How would the FBI investigate those indirectly associated with the victim? I mean, we were watching this a moment ago, if it'll play for me here. I mean, we were just watching this a moment ago, and they're her friends and all these people, and there's other people who are there. And then you've got the bar video here that we just watched. I mean, Rob, the issue with this is it's a resort. So outside of her little circle of friends, guy in the hat at the bar here and the guy next to him with the curly hair, I mean, they might be have been on a flight out the next morning. Like, it's complicated to get witness statements and talk to other people. So how do you do that, especially in a place as transient as a resort?
Well, if you really want to talk to the guy in the hat, you're going to have to try to, did he use a credit card? Did he put it on his bill? Go back to the hotel, figure out where he lives. What is he going to be able to give you? And again, if you're looking for, was some type of drug, inserted into both of their glasses, who knows, if they're both getting sick. And you'll see a lot of bar videos of guys slipping, roofies and other stuff into girls' drinks and stuff. So you're also looking at the bar video for stuff like that to indicate it. You've already talked to them as witnesses. And like I said, right now, there's one person's story and it's really hard to get them off it. I would love to, to ask to polygraph him, though the lawyers are never going to allow that. But even if you caught him in a lie, is it a lie to cover up what he did or didn't do? Like, there's that show, Lie to Me, it was on a long time ago, if you remember it, and in the beginning, you always caught someone lying. But the key was, I knew it was only 15 minutes in the show, so it wasn't the guy who killed someone or whatever. But when you catch someone lying, then you have to figure out why they're lying. Like, it may not be lying because you think they did what you're accusing them of. So he may be lying about this incident because he felt like a coward because she got hit with the wave. He's a lifeguard and couldn't bring her back. So he's remembering this fondly that he got her, and then he threw up and she must have gone back in. So you could put him on a polygraph and that whole story could be a lie. And it still doesn't change the fact that it was a terrible accident. He's lying about what he did on it and not what, and you can, again, at that point, if it's one of those, are we ever going to know? Even if you find her body, like he was some, sicko that, got it out there and he pulled her under and she drowned. Would you be able to pull that from the autopsy if the body's found at this point? I don't think so. So even when they find the body, obviously it's going to solve the fact that, she passed away and it was, probably due to drowning. They'll be able to figure that out. But how she drowned is not going to, I don't think, be proven with finding her remains.
There's some questions that Joshua Reeby refused to answer. I'm going to get to those in a second, but I'm just and shout out to Deep Thinker Deb for becoming a member, I believe, again. But David, to you, and by the way, I love all the regulars and I love the new people. I always say we're best guest, better community. We're one big happy family, and I love everyone in my family equally. There you go. David, what about the I mean, it does not seem this way, but if you're an investigator and the NYPD is called to this, don't you also have to keep in mind the potential that maybe something more sinister happened, that at some point where he loses sight of her on the beach, maybe someone else walks by and grabs her and has her holed up in some home somewhere in Punta Cana. I mean, that's also possible, unlikely, but how would you pursue that possibility?
Like, this is where we've gone through. You've got the person who last saw her. You've spoken to him ad infinitum. You've constantly asked him questions. He's now believing the story he said, whether it's not true or not at this point. People, and going back to lies, the only way you know he's lying if there's something to refute that, some sort of evidentiary fact that refutes his story. And right now you have nothing. You have nothing. You have no body. Reality, no body, no case in a sense. She's missing, apparently missing somehow. And that's what you're looking at. Has criminality been found yet? No. And that's why this deep dive into all the video and getting a timeline between the communication, between some sort of connection with her, the nexus between her and him. When did that end? When he said he fell asleep at the water, near the water. When did he go back to the hotel? Is there video that shows him going back to the hotel? What time was that? He's intox. He's not going to remember the time. He doesn't have a watch probably because he's not carrying a watch. He's not carrying his cell phone. But you have to try to build that timeline. But the only thing in reality is you have only 2 people at the beach and 1 story. And the other person that was at the beach is nowhere to be found. And it looks like, a drowning. Is it criminal? And as Rob said, during that interrogation, they haven't said anything that's different. The stories maybe change a little bit, but no one, if the story is the same, he said the same story 7 times. It's been rehearsed. You're not breaking it. He said little things, work on the little things that have been said. And if they did a walkthrough with him, maybe if they walked him back to the beach and had him go do a step-by-step thing, maybe that was done. I don't know, because you're only getting a little bit of that. Sometimes you walk people through it, that gives them that recollection that they may not have had when they were intox. I've done that when I was doing robbery cases, and I do a walkthrough with my victims, where they say they were here. Okay, we'll walk, and then I find a camera, or I find something, or they remember something. Oh, that's right, there was a guy that was over here, or this is what I did. So that could have been done or not done. That's another way of trying to develop a recollection. So getting off that story, have them physically actually go to the scene. But I don't know if they've done that. And that's something that should have been done. If it was, great. If it wasn't, maybe that's something they could have done at that point.
Yeah, that's interesting. Coco here with a super sticker. Thank you so much. So Rob D'Amico, you're the one that actually brought this up, but I've got him here. This guy, Reby, refused while being questioned by Dominican authorities. He refused to answer at least 8 what they're calling critical questions, simply saying that his lawyers advised him not to answer the question, and he's following their advice. Some of the questions, Rob, included details about the exact location and depth of the water during the incident. Let's just start there. Details about the exact location and depth of the water. Why would you not be able to answer that? I was over here and I was in 2 feet of water. I don't know. Like, why can't you answer that?
Yeah, I don't know why the lawyers said that. Because you well, you could say I woke up on this, he fell asleep on a lounge chair. He goes, I woke up on this lounge chair. We were within, 20, 30 feet of that. The water when we first got in was up to our waist, and then the wave hit us. And I don't know what the lawyers are saying, the purpose of not answering that is. And I think a lot of the questions are like that. Like one that he didn't answer was, was she a good swimmer? Did she know how to swim? I'm like, why he didn't say I don't know. She didn't seem that strong of a swimmer in the ocean, or why would that be something that your lawyers tell you oh, you can't answer that? I'm not sure. And most of the questions that he said that about, I didn't really get, because I don't think if he answered them, it would put him into a position where they're looking at more criminal things if he somehow answered them.
Yeah, let's continue to go through some of these. So Tom Smith, one of the other ones that he refuses to answer. By the way, if you're just joining, Tom and David, who are diagonal from each other, they are retired NYPD, and Rob, diagonal from me, retired military and FBI. But clarification on the sequence of events after returning to shore. So he doesn't want to answer that, what happened after you returned to shore. Again, the lawyers are telling him it could be incriminating. But do you see it that way?
Yeah, the only thing I could think of, and Rob's kind of on point with why. The only thing I can come up with is lawyers, when they talk to their clients, are going to go over what they think is going to get asked, and they'll come up with answers, and they kind of be on the same page. When questions get asked that they haven't discussed, they don't know the answer about, they're going to tell them not to answer it, because they're not going to allow their client just to answer any question that the lawyer doesn't know the answer to already and hasn't been discussed with his client. So that's probably what happened here. Detectives and investigators are doing a good job and thinking of a lot of questions to ask, thinking of an investigation, but the lawyers aren't in sync with their client with anticipating those questions. So they're not going to let them answer them.
Real quick, just a very short digression. This is an important one, not my usual inanities, but this one, SCS Nation viewer reached out to me. That person's going through a very difficult medical situation and is usually the one helping people. So, and they believe in the power of prayers. This person asked me to please pray for them. And if you believe in that sort of thing, please do. That was a very special request. And that person loves STS and loves the community and is in a difficult spot. So whatever you can say, and they didn't want to be named, so I don't know. However you would pray to someone who's nameless, that is what this person is asking for, and I've done it, and hoping you will too. So Dave Sarney, also, he refused to ask or respond to anything about any information regarding to any attempts that he made to seek help right after this incident. So, obviously he may not have known what happened to her, but he was, saying he's on shore throwing up from the salt water and the amount of water he takes in. But he won't tell authorities if he went to get help. Again, you're used to this. You're used to people not answering questions. It's got to be super frustrating.
It is. And, that's why sometimes the question is belies, and maybe just to walk them through it. Maybe they would have accepted that. Listen, don't have to talk. Just walk us through what you did. And maybe that's another way of going about these questions. Because they don't want to answer it. Then they'll say, no, we don't want to do that. Because they don't, and Tom's right, they don't know what the answer is because he doesn't know the answer. And he doesn't know what happened. And that's, I think, where it comes down to. He knows what he did, but he doesn't know what he did after. And that's something that either because of the intoxication or he doesn't feel comfortable in the story that he had afterwards. Maybe there is a guilt to it that she died, she drowned, and he did nothing. But he's going to put himself as the savior at that moment. But everything else he had is a blur in a sense. That's what it seems to be. And that's what it seems that the lawyers are alluding to with that fact that they're not letting him answer those questions. So it's going to take some time. And this is what it'll come down to. It's a story. Who else is going to refute that story? Was there someone on the beach who could say, yes, no, I saw this? And right now there is no one to refute what he's saying. So you have a missing person, and the last person to see her alive, said he tried to save her. He turned around and she was gone. When he woke up, she was gone. And it's on the beach in a resort in Dominican Republic, and that water is unforgiving at night, unforgiving at those hours. And if you're intox and you're in the water, even if you don't go for a swim, you're just going to hang out in the water. You don't know what's going to happen. And this is an unfortunate circumstance you have.
I actually try to scare the crap out of my kids about water, which is I'm not a good. COE was on the swim team. She's an excellent swimmer. I'm definitely the first one going down. Not good in the water. I know that shocks a lot of people. The final thing that I have on my list, Tom Smith, he would also not answer a question as to why he would not have insured this young woman's safety before he left the area. In other words, why did he just take off and not try to make sure that she was okay? Which, again, if he's wasted, maybe he's not thinking logically. But what about him just saying, I was too drunk? He wouldn't even say that. He just won't answer it.
Yeah, because it's just, it's the whole self-incriminating thing when you have your lawyer sitting next to you. If you're not 100% sure of the answer, the lawyers are not going to let them answer. And it's just going to, and lawyers are going to anticipate a follow-up question. So if you answer that, what's the next question going to be? And then what's the next question after that going to be? So lawyers just do their job with their clients, unfortunately. And it is frustrating as a detective or an agent when you're sitting across from someone that won't answer your questions, that you may even have a good idea what the answer is already, but you're not hearing it from the people that you need it to be answered by. So it is frustrating. And like Dave said, it's going to take a while. This could stay open for a very, very long time because someone at some point can pop up out of anywhere. And that's happened in every case, months from now, weeks from now, a year from now. Hey, I remember this, or maybe just the guilt of what happened overtakes someone and then they come forward with some information. So you never know.
Yeah. A few more things we got to get to, and then we'll get final thoughts. When you sobered up, why didn't you go back to check to see? I don't even know if he may not even have remembered. I don't know. Georgia OKC with a super sticker here. Thank you. Look at this from Stephanie.
The one questions though that he didn't answer were, did he tell his friends about what happened? So there's something in there. I think they have some and I'm not sure, they probably already talked to friends, but that one was like, wow, did he tell his friends something that was different from what he told the police? Maybe in there.
And you're saying they asked him that he did not answer that? Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, he did the lawyer thing on that one. And I forget. Let me pull up the exact question.
While you're doing that, STS Nation has no borders. I was just down at basically the southern border. It's such a safe place to be, with gratitude for this community from Canada. Our friends to the north, our northern neighbors. Shout out to Stephanie and thank you for that. While Rob's looking for that, David Sarney, their lawyers for this guy, Reby, are also trying to file a habeas corpus motion, which basically has to do with unlawful detainment. I mean, the laws have to be different in Punta Cana and Dominican Republic. I mean, how does that play out when you're not on the sovereign land of the United States of America and you're sitting there saying, hey, I'm being unlawfully detained? What's going to happen to this kid?
It's kind of like that TV show Locked Up Abroad. We don't know what's going to happen. And I don't know what the Dominican laws are going to be, how that's going to be handled. But they have nothing. And that's what the lawyer is saying. You have nothing on my client. He's got to go. You got to let him go. And that's coming into play. So we really have to, that's why there's an expediency to this, because the kid's eventually going to have to be released. They have nothing for him. He didn't do anything that they see he's done. So where are we going to go with this? And they have a right to that because there's nothing here. There's nobody, there's no case. We have a story, work on the story. He's going to go back to Iowa, and whatever the Dominican authorities find later on, whether, as Tom said, could it be someone coming out with their story later on? It's possible. But right now, you've got what you have.
By the way, look at this. She asked me to keep her name anonymous, which I did, but I'm glad she's one of the sweetest people. And I don't just love her because she put my book in the waiting room at the Westchester emergency room, where the hospital she works at. But it is Josephine. Thank you, Joel, for asking for prayers. She had 3 massive strokes and 4 surgeries in just the last week or so. I'm not even sure how you're out here typing, Josephine. Finally out of the ICU, but Josephine is an ER nurse, so she's usually the one helping everybody, and it's got to be a difficult feeling to be on the other side of that. But I'm so happy to see you here typing away, and I mean this sincerely. If there's anything we can do to help, please let us know, whether it's prayer, whether it's we can order you some food. STS is the best community in all, not just true crime, in all the YouTube. So Josephine, I know you have my email. Reach out if you need anything from us. Rob D'Amico will be glad to drive up from Hollywood to drop off some coffee. Whatever you need, you let us know. D'Amico, did you find that final question?
I did. I finally found it. I have like 25 web pages open with this stuff. it is. Could you tell us what you told your friend Carter Joseph when he asked about the missing girl? So,
hey, Steve Cohen, get Carter Joseph on the show tomorrow. Go ahead, Rob.
yeah. So there's something in that. Like, why did they ask that? Did Carter Joseph tell them something that was, a little bit different from what he's told people? So again, the perfect thing. Like if you get asked a question that we haven't talked about, tell them that you're not comfortable answering it, and you lawyer. That's probably what happened. They weren't anticipating some of them.
We do have a statement, by the way, from Reeby's family. This is the guy who's caught in the middle of all this, and I'm just going to find it real quickly here if I can. He said, the family says, and I quote here, "We express our deep sorrow and solidarity with the family of Sudiksha Konanki during this painful time. Above all, we wish to contribute to the search efforts and understand the anguish and uncertainty they are going through. And we share the hope that Sudiksha will be found as soon as possible." And I would have to agree with that assessment or that sentiment that they do find her as soon as possible, and hopefully there's a miracle and she's okay. D'Amico, just a couple of quick questions and then again final thoughts, but search and rescue. I mean, like, how would you assess this so far? They're using drones, they're using dogs, they're using apparently helicopters. Is there anything that the FBI may have brought in that's a level above in terms of technology that could have helped them?
The FBI has some things. Some of it's for land. So, like, there's a sensor that you can put on a plane that can really bring up a fresh dug grave, just because the difference it's a multispectral analysis tool, and it can tell the difference between fresh dug dirt and other dirt. And then there's some probably underwater stuff that the Navy may have. I mean, again, we get into the technology stuff, looking at, his cell phone, which was odd though, because he was taking that selfie when that video last week that we talked about when he was walking to the beach. And then in his statement, though, he says he came back to the hotel and went to his friend's room to get his phone. So he had the phone going out to the beach. Why did the phone come back? And it may have been like, hey, the battery's dead, so my buddy was leaving, I gave it to him to plug in or something like that, or if he knew he was going swimming. But I did think that was kind of odd from what we saw before. But technology wise, a bureau can bring its cellular analytics and stuff, and you're looking at that cell tower and all these other things that are happening. I think some of that other technology, again, the ocean, it's huge, and people were saying, well, the bodies in January wash up. But even if they did, and they wash up at all on the same part of the shore, this is 2 months later. The ocean and the currents change consistently. So, and whatever was happening that day storm wise changes how that ocean is going to do things. So just because one day this happens in the ocean does not mean it happens the next day.
Yeah. So got to thank these amazing guests. I'll ask some questions as we're kind of saying goodbye. David Sarney, all around great guy, retired NYPD detective, and now he's the professor. He teaches at John Jay Criminal Justice School in Manhattan, one of the best, if not the best, in the country. One of the questions I saw someone asking me about, and this would be a very specific kind of niche investigator, and I don't know that you ever dealt with this, but what about like tidal analysis, like analyzing the ocean tides? Could that help investigators? Did they already do that, or is that just like looking for something even less than a needle in a haystack?
Why not try anything at this point? I mean, that's the thing. If there's something available you can use as a test, why not at this point? If there's a chance it could work. But the reality is, you have to have a particular time. We've seen this, and there's been problems at this location before. We've had drownings in the past. It comes back down to, regardless of what the tide did or tide didn't do, you have a person's story that has not been refuted or can be refuted at this point. And that's why the investigation continues and goes on. because this is the problem with this case. It's a hard case. It's a hard thing to say, by the way, this is an accidental death at the end of this all. We don't know. It's considered, and Tom remembers, you might remember the CUPI, the term circumstance unknown, any police investigation. One of the worst ways to end a case when it comes to a death. And this police investigation right now is at a standstill. You've had enough information from the last witness, unless someone refutes his story, either through physical evidence, trace evidence, or an actual recantation by him or another eyewitness. You have to go with what you have. Anything you can try to do to try to get the answers you want, why not? That's how I look at this.
Yeah. Sarni, let me put you on the spot. Since you're the teacher, let me flip the table on you. If you could ask this guy one other question, what would that question be if you were in the interview room?
This is the hard part. Because, I mean, they have all these different questions about where he was, and he's not going to answer them going, how do you feel about the whole situation? Get a little bit of his feeling. Maybe get into him a little bit. How do you feel about what's going on here? And talk to him that way and sort of get a leveling of him. Because, one thing in interrogations always want by rapport building. I don't know if the Dominican authorities use rapport building. I don't know if the investigators did that. I don't know. I'm not in the room. But sometimes you just sit there and just shoot it. Just talk about things, about going on this vacation. Talk about the vacation itself. Talk about all that. Getting into a backstory about it. How you met this girl. How was the night? How did the night go? First place you've ever been to talk. Bring yourself some sort of a bond there and maybe get more into it. There's not really one question you get an answer to that's going to say, did you do it? That's the one. Did you do it? He's going to say no. So what you want to do is build, and maybe somewhere along the line, you get that building, and then he feels confident enough to actually tell you what he remembers and not what he's saying, what he remembers. And I think that's where we're looking at. So what do you really remember? You remember everything, but you don't want to talk about what you did afterwards. So that's really the whole thing. It's creating that. I got you here, but tell me what happened afterwards. And this attorney said, don't talk about it. So that's your problem.
And I think that's what makes law enforcement officers great at what they do. If they got the people skills and they got the rapport. You just heard Brooklyn Pasola. She is always here. I think generally it takes 5 to 7 days for a deceased to bloat and come to surface, but could be stuck, snagged, or in a strong current underwater. We did this story, not this story, but obviously a lot of similarities with Riley Strain, who was a kid who went to Nashville on I don't know if it was a spring break, but he went missing, and there was surveillance video of him, and turned out he somehow got into the I think it's the Cumberland River, and it was sort of a miracle that he was found, because he got snagged under a barge, but there was workers who were like doing work on that and were diving, and were able to locate him. So that was kind of crazy. David's just buffering some. Oh, there you go. You're
back in the mix.
Yeah, there we go. This one I'm gonna pop out. There we go. So for those who do not know, now you know, Tom Smith. And by the way, someone asked, Rob, are you going to do an episode? Rob is going to have a show coming out on True Crime Talk, as is Tom Smith. He's bringing his Gold Shield show to the second channel, and it's going to be awesome. The channel is going to be great, and we're all going to help each other to get our shows a little more visibility, and hopefully STS
I just did an episode, was it 2 Fridays ago, on Tom's show. So if you want to see that one, that was pretty fun doing that one.
Oh, that's awesome. I will check that out, because I'm a fan of these guys. So Tom Smith, I guess I'm going to ask you the same question. If you could get in the interview room with this guy, what would you ask him? And what's your gut tell you? Just a horrible accident?
Well, to answer your second question, yes, I think it was. But, questioning and skills and, experience in questioning these people are, what do they say and what generates the next question? To just say, hey, what would you add is rough, because a lot determines on his actions, his emotions. What is he acting like when you're asking a certain question? Is there a visible reaction when you ask something? And that's going to further another question. So, it would have been great to be in the room, because then you get in a rhythm, like all of us know, a reaction to a question, hit the next question harder, the next question harder, next question harder, and just see where it leads. So, it's rough just to pinpoint a question, but one of the only thing that came into my mind was, was there ever a thought of you to get help? You're both throwing up. You're telling everyone you got seawater in your lungs and you're throwing up. She had to be pulled out of the water. Did you ever think you're going to get some help for you guys?
Good question. A simple question, and it could reveal some stuff. Rob D'Amico, to you. For those who don't know, Rob served in the military, and then he was a member of the hostage rescue team for the FBI, which ain't too easy a gig to get. Rob, have you had a similar case where it's someone that you're looking for, where the FBI got involved, and just your final thoughts on whether this is a tragic accident and where it goes from here?
Yeah, I remember I got down to Miami in 1995 in June, and then a very short time later, a 7-year-old boy, Jimmy Rice, went missing, and his parents had gone up to West Palm Beach. His older brother was going to be home from high school. He had like 50 yards to walk from a bus to his house and disappeared. And FBI got involved. I remember I was actually because I'd done a bunch of diving in the military. And then in the Marines on close on combat diver, which is the bubble scuba. And so I actually had dive gear, and we were diving canals looking for, Jimmy's body in the canals south of Miami. And we were using helicopters and all kinds of stuff. And it turned out the guy who had taken and abducted him and stuff like that, it was horrible, but he was a ranch hand somewhere, and the people that he was working for got suspicious of him stealing stuff from the house. So the husband took him to the feed store, and the wife went into the trailer he was living in. They found Jimmy Rice's book bag, and it was a horrible series of events. And I'll never forget, again, first one, and looking in water and stuff. So I'm still leaning on this one, that it was probably a tragic accident. I think he may be not telling everything about what happened because he feels guilty, and he's remembering it a certain way that takes some of that burden off. And it may, like, if he's flat out drunk, he may not be doing it almost on purpose, to a point that he wanted to believe he was this heroic type guy that saved her, and then she got swept away again. But also, I think Val from UK asked, can you see over my left shoulder the blue thing? She kind of asked what that was.
Yeah, what is that? Let's bring.
So that is the HRT Maritime Shark. So some seals cut that for me in like 1/8-inch steel, and I end up putting in a frame and putting a blue light around it. But that's part of the FBI's HRT. We were divers that did combat diving, and that was our symbol and stuff, was the hammerhead shark and a thing. So
that's super cool. I can guarantee you I'll never have that. I got a YouTube plaque though. How about that? It's pretty manly, a YouTube plaque. Aria Dakota Grimaldi Lane comes to us from the UK. Best guess. Thanks for another great show. I'm praying for Josephine and hoping they find Sudiksha soon. And I am hoping that is the case as well. But appreciate everybody being here. Back into it after a trip out west. If you haven't been to the West, it's absolutely beautiful, amazing, a very weird place, but awesome and very cool. Thanks to David Sarney, Rob D'Amico, Tom Smith. Tomorrow, by the way, next 2 days, my two daughters are both in the play Grease at night, and I'll be doing afternoon shows. I can't miss that. So 12:30 tomorrow. Wendy Adelson's getting deposed later this week. We're going to be discussing that, and we'll come up and have a show for you on Wednesday at noon. So stick around. Follow me on Twitter at podcaststs for show times. Same on Instagram. That's Surviving the Survivor. And on your way out, please hit that like button, subscribe, and love you, America. Love you, New York, Florida, New York. Everyone's Florida, New York, Florida. And hopefully they can find Sudiksha in one way or another so her parents can have some peace. We'll see you guys tomorrow, 12:30 p.m. Eastern